This is the Film Odyssey podcast, where me and my brother trek through cinema on a quest to find the best film ever made. This season, we begin our journey by counting down the AFI Top 100 films of all time. So come join us on this Film Odyssey. So Randy, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Pretty good? Pretty good. This week, we watched a musical. We watched one of the older films on the list from 1942, Yankee Doodle Dandy.
It was in 42?
42 is when this movie came out.
Oh, I thought it was late 40s. Oh, my.
Randy's like expectations.
It changes my perspective on the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess before we jump in, so yeah, this movie comes out in 1942, was nominated for 8 Oscars, won 3 of them, and yeah, Yankee Doodle Dandy. So, plot of this film is the musical director, producer, and actor, and lifelong ham, George M. Cohen, played by James Cagney, is put on display as the aging song and dance man is brought to the White House to accept a congressional medal for his contribution to America. And while there, he reflects back on his life on stage and the sacrifices he's made for his art, kind of. Basically, it's a 2-hour excuse to listen to some song and dance stuff and watch James Cagney work his ass off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really carrying this all by himself.
Right? Like, I don't want to say anything, but this movie isn't that great, but James Cagney is amazing.
Well, yeah, and he's about the only actor in this movie.
Wow. Are you throwing some shade at the 1942 people?
What do you mean? Like, he's the only one with any real personality in, like, the whole movie.
Really?
I mean, even the president's dubbed in.
Yeah, I noticed that. It was kind of hard not to notice that the FDR stand-in is a dub dude, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, couldn't they have found a better guy to dub in? Because it's a really weird dub job for the president. And kind of the rest of the movie? I actually don't... Yeah, a lot of this movie had to have been dubbed, right?
Really? You think so?
I think so.
Well, I mean, all the, the stuff where they're on stage.
Yeah, all the stuff on stage, which is, most of the movie.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, because did you notice that most of this movie is just musical numbers played back to back to back without, plot for, a solid hour?
Yeah, but it kind of plays into the plot, though.
I guess. It does show the passage of time and him becoming more and more successful.
Yeah, and kind of the effect it has on him as a person throughout the movie. And I think it's not so much to show the passage of time as to show the development of him as the older he gets.
Well, what do you mean by, development of him? Because I don't know how much he changes. Even when we see him as a kid, he's this massive, hammy, wants to be in front of the stage and generally really successful person. It might be a thing where...
He gets more compassionate as he gets older.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's probably one of those things where this film is the first of those musical biopics that we get. And it might just be a thing where it's I'm watching this and I'm expecting the walk the line or the rave moment where it's oh, this is where the actor or the singer reaches their low point in the movie. And he never really reaches a low point.
I think the low point comes very early in the movie.
Well, when he starts to rags to riches kind of thing.
Yeah, the low point is when he lies to his family about getting that position or whatever, the play job or whatever. It's that moment in movies always gets to me as oh, he's so fucked.
When he has to send his family off to hey, it's
when
fine,
he's just when the character comes in, they just kind of straight up just lie about how well they're doing, where it's just it's over, that guy's fucked.
He's super fucked.
Yeah.
And then he lies through his teeth during some other person's business meeting.
Yes.
Which
he manages to get to land the first big hit or whatever.
Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Yes.
Which, okay, you know that song, right?
Yeah.
I never knew the rest of that song. I just knew Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony, and that was it. I didn't know there was more to it. I thought it was just the chorus repeated over and over to tap dancing.
Oh.
Yeah. Is that
no?
No. I'm sorry.
I knew there was more to it. I just didn't know it.
Yeah, which is kind of weird because that song. I now realize that song's also 100 years old.
Yes, but back to the movie.
Back to the movie.
So, the movie starts with him being a young boy, and it just progresses through his life. And I think it's kind of a very simple story. You know, I think it was mostly an excuse just to get James Cagney to really act. I mean, this movie's all about him.
Yeah, he is up front and foremost the lead, the reason we're here, the star, everything.
Actually, you know what? That's kind of like a cool like thing to intertwine with the story of the movie. Like even in the movie, people make references to how everything is George M. Cohen throughout the entire movie. Where it's people will go up to like the movie posters and be like, "Oh, it's produced, written, directed, acted in by George M. Cohen," and you kind of get the same impression with James Cagney, where he's the whole show. This movie is just him. What is the phrase? Like a tour de force of his acting ability.
Yeah, you know what's crazy? James Cagney, he became famous playing gangsters in like the 30s and in all that stuff. Scarface is probably his most famous like performance. He had never done like a musical before this, even though he was trained as a song and dance man. Like he literally a vaudevillian actor kind of person, like George M. Cohen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so him tap dancing, all that stuff, that's really him. Him singing, that's really him.
Oh, wow.
Which is fascinating because I'm looking and I'm like looking to see, okay, where's the stunt double jumping in? Where's the body double to do the crazy tap moves? And apparently James Cagney did all of it.
And those are some crazy tap moves.
But speaking of James Cagney, do you know why he took this role?
Why?
The film, the biopic, was going to be done for George M. Cohen. He approved it, Film Legacy, and all that stuff. And his whole...
Wait, is this about a real guy?
Yeah, George M. Cohen was a real living human being. Is a legitimate... He was a live, real person. Most of this shit is real...
Wait, you didn't open with this?
Yeah. Oh,
I didn't know.
You didn't know?
No, nobody told me.
What?
How was I supposed to be informed? You didn't even tell the listening audience.
All right. Well, I guess we'll jump with this. Rainey is now so surprised that this is a real story.
Yeah, I had like an inkling that it was, but like I wasn't sure, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And when you said like, oh, the movie came out in like 1942, I'm like, well, it seems like the movie would have been made later than that.
Mm-hmm.
So the real George M. Cohen did get a Congressional Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
In what year?
1939 or 40, something like that. Maybe 41.
And this biopic came out just 2 years later?
Something like that, yeah. He was alive when this came out.
Well, I'm sure he was.
He died a week after it premiered.
Did he really?
Something like that, a week or a couple months after, yeah.
Wow, what a showman.
Oh, yeah. Showstopper. Oh, yeah.
No, I'm saying, he only... died 2 weeks after the premiere of the movie, detailing his life. Oh, what a showman!
he was like,
of course.
He's like, well, that's everything. All right, deuces. But yeah, no, he was a real person, and he wanted to get this movie made, to kind of commemorate his life and cement his legacy as # the greatest showman or the great American patriot, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
And James Cagney agreed to play the part because a couple years prior, he was accused of being a communist back in the 30s.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the death nail of your career. But he was able to get like acquitted. He's like, I was never part of it. I knew a guy who knew a guy that was a communist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his brother was like,
typical stuff.
Typical stuff. And his brother, William Cagney, was like, the only way you're going to save your career is to do the most patriotic film I could find. So they made Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Yeah, so this movie saved his career. He was a known actor, but then you get the stigma of being a communist, especially going into World War II era.
Yeah,
it's not a great look.
Yeah, it's not a good look to be any kind of socialist.
But yeah, so you really didn't know this is about a real guy?
No, I didn't know.
Does that change your perspective on it?
Yes, the movie makes so much more sense.
How? How does it make more sense to you?
Well, because the lineup of all of the different things that happened in his life, it would have made more dramatic sense, or some of the songs, they felt like they would have been dated even by the 40s, and so if you, even if you were making this biopic, you'd have maybe brushed them up a little bit. But if they're real songs that you can't really brush up that much, people are gonna notice, like Mary, for instance, which everybody was like, oh, it's his greatest work or whatever, and I'm like, it kind of sucks.
Really? You thought Mary sucked?
Yeah.
I thought it was a cute song.
It's a cute little song, but they were all raving it was best work.
It's it's the greatest, theatrical song you could have made.
It was this lady who's this real pompous, big actress or whatever, sings the song. And she's like, oh, I must be in his performance to sing this great work of art. And it's just it's okay.
It's fine. It's okay.
It's fine. But it's if that was a real song, it makes a lot more sense,
Yeah.
Because it's a real thing that actually happened.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to a little thing about this because now the movie is it's a story of the man's life, but with caveat. Because real life George M. Cohen, one thing that happened in his life that's not featured in the movie is he was divorced. He married twice. Mary's his second wife, to my knowledge. And they kind of combined the two wives' romances into one thing.
Oh, okay.
And I'm curious how much of the real life story was manipulated to make the film work. Him probably fast talking his way into a production deal at a bar is probably flubbed a little bit, right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much of stuff like that you picked out as like, that's dramatic license.
Well, it's like, that's dramatic license. Also, nothing like, except for like his father dying. Also, they totally scrub over his mother dying.
And his sister dying.
I didn't know. Like, with his sister dying, I wasn't even sure if she was just like not in the picture anymore or if she was dead.
Yeah,
like,
they kind of...
Because they gloss over both the mother and the sister.
He also goes from like, what, his like 30s to like straight into his 60s.
Yes. Like when they do like the whole like retiring bit, like when his father dies and he like kind of retires after that, it skips ahead like 10 years almost, it seems.
I think in the movie they said 15 years.
15 years?
He disappeared for like 15 years.
Yeah.
Which I'm now wondering how old he was when the movie is supposed to take place in quote unquote contemporary times. So like he had to have been like in his mid 60s, maybe close to 70.
Yeah, something like that. That sounds about right.
Yeah, and I'm like, his sister was younger than him. Did she like die in an accident, or is it like she just left? She went to California and disappeared.
God knows.
God knows.
Not God knows, but we'd have to look it up.
Not a fault of the movie, but yeah.
Well, it is.
Oh, sorry. It
is a fault of the movie.
Fault of the movie, but not a fault of research, I guess.
I guess they didn't think it was important.
Which
is
seems
kind of
like it's important.
It seems like it would be important, but I guess they feel that an audience at that time would have just understood that she's gone means she's dead.
Yeah, or gone is like, well, she got married, so she's part of that guy's family.
I was thinking about that too, where it's maybe like that whole old time thing where it's like, you know, if you marry into like, if a woman marries a man, she's part of like his family now, like kind of separated from her old family, you know,
which is a very like old school, old style kind of marriage thing, which it might. I
was kind of wondering if that was the case, because like he seemed to have gotten really upset at first when like his sister told him that she was going to get married. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like, you know, it was going to like break up the family. And I was like, well, why would it break up the family? But it's like, no, back then, like her getting married, that's like the end of her like independence of doing all this. Like,
yeah, she becomes the mother, the housekeeper, all that stuff. I wonder if that's a thing about the movie story where, first of all, it's being made in 1942.
Yes.
Which at this point is 80 years ago. Mm-hmm. And most of this is taking place pre-turn of the century?
No, only some of it.
Well, he's born in 1870 something, and then we see him up till 1912. So like basically pre-World War I is most of this movie. Is it just a thing where a lot of what's going on is archaic?
Well, also the movie takes place over a large period of time.
Very large period of time. Yeah, it goes through his whole life, like a full 60-something years. And
so the time jumps aren't like there's no like, you know, where it cuts to black and there's like a, you know, 5 years later. Yeah. You know, it just kind of like they just age up and
they just kind of assume you catch that he went from like 18 to like
20 something
to like 30, and James Cagney ain't exactly wearing a lot of makeup in
between.
Yeah,
he's not, you know, really coming off as all these different ages as like a specific age. You kind of have to just kind of guess.
Yeah. Also, okay, the beginning of this film when we have the child actor playing George Cohen, I'm not gonna lie, I was not a fan of the first bit of the film where it's the child actor playing him. I really dug it as soon as like James Cagney showed up, when he does the whole bit with the old man in the back room when Mary comes in and they meet for the first time. And he's playing, here's the old man. He does the tap routine and she like freaks out, thinks he's gonna have a heart attack. Yeah, I thought, this is like the movie's finally starting. Like this is.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way.
Yeah, did you not like the child actor?
No, I thought he was fine.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't have any problems with him. I mean, he was playing like a little snotty kid.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not no fault of him. That's the role he's playing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it totally makes sense. You know, he's this kid. He's starting to become a star. You know, obviously he's going to get all like, you know,
the ego.
the huge ego right away. And he gets beat up by the other kids for it.
So do you think that, well, is there something about the opening you didn't like? Because I felt I just didn't like it. I thought the movie just got immediately better when James Cagney showed up. What about you that you didn't like about the
It doesn't have James Cagney in it.
Doesn't have James Cagney.
And then the whole movie's about him. And the whole, like, he carries the whole movie on his back. I mean, I'm sure, like, the reason, like, the reason, like, he died at the age he died at is probably because he had a bag back from carrying all this.
I mean, I ain't gonna lie. And you know what sucks? I think he only did one other musical other than this.
Really?
I think so. And, which is kind of crazy because he's really good in this.
He's really good. He's a great actor.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? Him singing there, that's not how he normally sings.
Really?
He's doing a George Cohen impersonation in that singing. So I've heard him sing once in another thing, and he actually has like this really kind of big like
yeah, I noticed that
voice.
in the movie. Like sometimes some of the musical numbers they would do, he's like very like held back.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, not like straining, but like he is singing in a way that's like overly subdued. When it kind of like stood out to me, because sometimes, you know, they have like the big song and dance numbers and like he's just kind of like going at it. But other times when he's singing, it's like he's got like this tinny old, like,
it's an old sounding singing
style, and it kind of stood out to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes way more sense now because that's how the real George Cohen must have sung back then, and he's doing an impersonation of it. It makes so much more sense.
I feel a lot of the things that make this movie awkward really stems from the fact that, well, he has to sound like a real person.
Yeah.
It's not like
It's not even that awkward.
Really?
I don't think so.
It is a thing where I don't think James Cagney's awkward. I think there's parts of the movie that are a little awkward.
Well, yeah, but I think a lot of it is because it's a 1942 musical.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different from like the movies we see even close to today, like 80s and up. Like,
yeah.
It's very different than like basically all the other movies I've seen, because there's a lot of things I expected to happen in the movie that didn't happen. Like, there was no big dramatic thing between him and his wife.
Yeah, which you usually expect to happen. You know, oh, she's the supportive wife that dotes on him, all this other stuff. But eventually that bow breaks, and there's supposed to be the blow up. She's like, I'm my own person, and he's like, well, I'm an artist, blah, blah, blah. That very stereotypical thing.
We're like, you know, programmed to expect those type of things, but it doesn't happen because it's
1942.
It's 1942. It's not a what's it called, a trope yet.
Which is crazy, because this movie is inventing tropes.
Yes.
It literally invented we're gonna do the musician's biopic thing. This is the first one of those in the English language. But let's just talk about James Cagney for a second, because James,
we've been talking about him the whole time.
I know this is his movie.
Talking about Yankee Doodle Dandy is literally just talking about James Cagney.
Yeah, and so this was nominated for 8 Oscars. He won the Best Actor Oscar for this.
Yes.
And yeah, for my money, he is the best actor in this film by far.
Country miles.
But I'm curious, you know, what you thought of. You kind of already said he is the best part of this movie, but I want to know why you think he's the best part of this movie. Because for me, I think he's the best part because he feels so much more modern in his performance. He feels way more like a character than everyone else. Everyone else feels like they're coming in, saying lines with some inflection, and moving across the stage. And he's like,
the rest of them are kind of doing it like
a stage play.
Like a stage play, and he's doing it like a movie actor.
I wonder if that comes from the fact that he was, you know, working in gangster films. He was working in a lot of like genre flicks.
I wonder if a lot of the other like actors and actresses in this movie were stage actors coming into the movie.
Maybe. I actually don't know.
That'd be interesting. It would explain a lot about the movie, because of they got a lot of stage actors that maybe were fans of George Cohen to like work on it, which would make a lot of sense. You know, they would take, you know, maybe less pay to be like, oh, I worked in a movie about George Cohen, who was like my idol or whatever. it would kind of explain why there's so many like wooden characters in it, because they're not used to acting in front of a camera, to being so close to the audience.
We've had this conversation actually recently about the difference between theater acting and like film acting.
Yes.
Because theater actors have to play to the cheap seats in the back of the house, and theater actors have to play in...
Or you mean
like,
movie actors.
Or movie actors have to play close-up. They have to be able to play to a camera or an audience member that's...
right next to them.
Yeah, like 3 feet away.
Who's in the room with them.
Which is really interesting because I feel James Cagney, he's playing a character that's...
He's playing both.
He's playing both. Because when he's doing the stage productions, he's playing to the cheapest seats. He's playing to the theater next door.
Yes. Which he literally is throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Literally plays in the theater next door.
Yes! It's so good. And then you have the moments like when his dad like dies, and you're just like, oh, that's like an emotional scene. And
it hits.
And it does. I thought when that was happening, I was like, okay, here's the sad part, let's just move on. And then he has his moments, he's like, yeah, Dad, I told him, my dad thinks you, my mom thinks you, and he goes through like the thank you speech he did as a kid, and I'm like, okay, that kind of hit.
It kind of hit.
That kind of, I didn't like get the teary eyes, but I'm like, I kind of felt the tinge. It like,
you're like, oof.
Which is so good.
Yeah.
So you're adamant that, he absolutely deserved this Oscar. He is great in this movie.
Well, he also reminded me of more contemporary actors. Like, at one point, I, like, kind of turned to you and I was like, he reminds me of Leo in, like, the way he carries himself in his acting and, like, how he portrays his character. He's really, like, a three-dimensional character, He's got the jokes. He's got, like, a real person.
Yeah, I noticed when you said that, and I was thinking about what you meant. And now that you say it like that, yeah, it does make sense, because he's portrayed more three-dimensional than anyone else. And that might be on purpose, because it's a biopic about a hammy person who helped make the movie. Also, this movie's way funnier than I thought it would ever be.
There were some good chuckles.
There were some good chuckles?
There were some good chuckles.
What's your favorite chuckle?
My favorite chuckle?
Your favorite chuckle?
Was the one that probably caught me off guard was when he gives the song Mary to the actress, and he comes home with, like, the chocolate and flowers. Mm-hmm. And because I'm thinking, he's gonna get into like a fight with his. This
is the scene where we get the divorce that was supposed to happen.
Yes, probably actually, but I thought there was gonna be this huge fight, this huge argument or whatever, and she just turns to him and goes, "Oh, I knew you were gonna say that as soon as he came with the flowers and chocolates." And like the look on his face, he's like so stunned by what happened, and like the sass from her. And I was just like, it just caught me off guard. I just chuckled. It was so good.
Yeah, I was watching it and I heard you behind me just started like busting.
I was like,
it's good. It's good. My personal favorite. It's still the old man bit when him and Mary meet for the first time.
Really?
Just because how they play off each other, it's such slapsticky, just old funny.
Yeah, it's so cute and like wholesome and like really like nice and pretty funny. When he starts removing his eyebrows
and she starts
freaking out and she like pulls off his beard. It's like, oh my god, blah blah. And he's like, well, you're gonna have to deal with a lot of these in showbiz.
I was like, oh, that's good. It's
just so wholesome and like
that is like the perfect like meet cute scene.
Yeah.
You know about that in romantic comedies, the meet cute, where it's like, oh, the boy and the girl are going to meet, it's going to be so cute, and it's going to get the audience on their side. It's like, oh, we want those two to be together. Yeah. And this is like the perfect in combination of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm wondering what else. Oh,
I do have a criticism about this movie in that it's so simple.
Yeah. I mean,
it's very
I don't know
to the point and simple and just kind of like, there's not much depth to it.
I don't know about that.
Well, there's not a lot of drama in it. I mean, I know it's almost like just a straight up musical comedy. Like, there's a little bit of drama, but it's all drama that's like very
we're doing
safe.
We're doing this for a scene, and it's going to be resolved in this scene or in the next scene.
Yeah, and it's all very safe. It's like, they have drama about like his father dying.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, that's pretty normal thing to have like drama about in your family, when you're turning like 60 or however old he was turning.
Yeah. Which makes his dad have to be in his 90s?
He's like 80-ish.
Yeah.
Something like that at least. Because I think that was like before the age up, right?
I think.
So he was like in his 40s. And his dad must have been in like his 70s or something.
I mean, impressive for somebody who was born during the Civil War. Or actually, no, his dad served in the Civil War.
Yes.
Which, impressive. Impressive to make it that deep. That deep into the 20th century. But besides the point, I don't know if it having a simple story is bad, because I think it does have a simple story, but it serves the point of the movie for me, because I think the point of this movie is to kind of encapsulate Cohen's legacy as this big, bombastic, showy, all-American performer.
You know what, actually? Because I was thinking about the movie as more encompassing his life. But to encompass his legacy is a much more accurate description of what the movie is. The movie isn't to encompass his life and to, like, be a complete story of his life. It's to be more of, like, a complete story of his legacy, of the person he is, not to himself and not to just, like, the people around him, but is who he is to his country.
Yeah.
So that's basically the main point of the story, is him getting the Congressional Medal of Honor.
And he's basically explaining, this is why I got this honor, because I started from basically nothing and grinded my way, gave these songs, these performances, these plays, this art to the American people, and I became beloved for it.
Yes.
It's a really nice story about an old Irish kid. Good on him.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I forgot about that.
You know, like, another reason, like, George M. Cohen wanted James Cagney to play him?
Why?
Because they were both Irish American. That was like a big reason, which was, like, funny, but yeah. Also,
well, because probably Cohen, being an older guy, having that older, like, mindset, was like, I want somebody to represent me who, like, I can relate to, very easily, and we can relate over the same things of both being Irish American.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, like, when they were doing the movie, that when Cohen had to explain to Cagney, like, how to feel in, like, a certain moment, it was probably easier, because he could explain to him, like, oh, like, our Irish fathers and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. He's like, you remember getting beaten by your Irish dad?
Oh,
and Cagney's like, every Sunday.
Oh,
every Sunday after church.
Goodness.
We can say it because we're Irish, come on.
I guess. But, it, like, makes sense. It makes sense.
It does. Another thing about this movie, this is the reception of this movie was huge. It was a huge hit. Again, nominated for 8 Oscars. It won 3 of them.
Also, it's a very patriotic movie, and it came out in 1942.
And that's exactly it. Because this comes out in 1942. American troops are storming across Europe. They're island hopping in the Pacific. And this film is maximum patriotic. Like, there's unbroken sequences of the American flag just waving with, like, Yankee Doodle Dandy being played.
Hundreds of American flags in this movie. Probably thousands.
It ends with a musical number of FDR talking mad shit on Hitler.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's right before the end. But yes.
Right before the end, yeah.
That's basically, like, the second to last, like, musical number, if you count, like, when they're marching or whatever with Over There.
Yeah. And this is also a musical, which is the most escapist genre of film, or one of.
Yeah. So,
all right, do you think this movie just tapped into that cultural zeitgeist, wartime America, and that's why it did so well? And why this film is held up so well. People keep lauding it because they know, well, it tapped into the cultural zeitgeist, and we can't separate it anymore.
No, I'm saying that yes, that's correct. No, okay. They cannot separate it from the cultural zeitgeist.
Was this just, like, the most slam dunky thing they could have done in 1942?
Yes.
We're gonna make the most American thing possible about a guy who's so American he was born on the 4th of July.
And got a Congressional Medal of Honor.
Yeah, I'm just gonna slam this one.
Just slide that one across the table, by the way. Got a Congressional Medal of Honor, born on the 4th of July, wrote Yankee Doodle Dandy, and Over There.
Yeah. Also, by the way, I was
wrote Yankee Doodle Dandy. What was the other one? It was Over There, and it was...
the one he got the medal for?
It was Grand Old Flag?
Grand Old Flag. Also, he wrote Grand Old Flag. Grand Old Flag. Yeah. I know that song. And it's just a fascinating little movie. Yeah. And I'm just... Okay. Do you have any more little thoughts, or do you want to get to the AFI comparison things? Because there's a lot actually going on in this movie.
I feel like we haven't really talked about all that much about the movie.
Which is crazy, because we're like 40 minutes in.
And there's not much going on in the movie. It's like a big criticism I have for it. Mm-hmm. Which is why I probably won't rank it as highly as some others. We'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
But, like, it's very simple. It's really good for what it is, but it's not very deep, and I'm kind of feeling like I'm missing something,
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: I enjoyed it. I enjoyed
it.
I was not mad at the end. I'm like, that wasn't a good 2 hours. I'm like, no, I felt good. That was just like a really.
I'm glad I watched it.
It was a really sweet, cute little musical, and it told a story. And I'm like, I could see people still watching this movie now. It probably you would only put this on for like 4th of July.
Yeah.
This seems like the kind of movie you watch when you're in a really
patriotic mood.
Yeah. I can't imagine how many people would flip this on for like, hey, it's a Friday night, let's watch Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Well, also, here's the thing. Do you think this has any appeal to non-American audiences?
Oof. Probably not. Probably not.
Not at all?
I could vaguely see some people who
were like maybe interested in American culture.
I was thinking maybe people like in India or Bollywood who are really into big musicals. Like I could see that because there's the musical numbers where he does I think it's one of the Yankee Doodle Dandies or something like that where it's the big flag number and it's like just this huge thing and it goes marching on.
Oh yes.
I'm like those big bombastic musical numbers.
Or the one with the ship.
Oh, the one with the ship. Those ones I'm like, oh, okay.
They're big numbers.
They're big numbers, and I'm like, I could see somebody who's really into musicals digging that. Or into, like, theater. This is a really good theater film. Which, I don't know. It's a hard to qualify, because some of it's not really a movie. It's not really, like, cinematic. It's like, we're filming a stage production, almost.
I mean, that's really how it feels at times in the movie, where they're just filming the stage production, but it ties into everything, so it's kind of they get away with it, you know? They're like, we're a movie about a stage guy. Like, come on.
Yeah, come on, man. Like, it's just a strange little flick. But I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So you said, do you think anybody outside of America would watch this? Do you think anybody in America now would go out of their way to watch this? What is the demographic of people who would want to watch this film?
People who are kind of like interested into the zeitgeist of that early war time frame. Like that's mainly like the people I would assume would be interested into watching this movie is people that are interested into early war like zeitgeist, like the culture of that time.
Ultra patriotic but not
even
douchey about it.
Not even necessarily like ultra patriotic people that are just interested in that time frame. They could be like, like people that are war nerds, those history guys.
Yeah.
Or just people that are wondering more about like the cultural impact of things in America. People that are like looking back on our past and looking to see what kind of formed the current state we're in, trying to like build the little chain link of events that got us to where we are.
I mean, this is a pretty good link in terms of like the quote unquote American propaganda film.
Yeah.
Because this, in all honesty, you could almost call this an American like propaganda film.
I mean, kind of is, yeah. I mean, I think that might be why there's not that much drama in it.
Because they want to show, this guy, rags to riches, is all squeaky clean, great American values got him through the day.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't even do anything about his mom dying.
Which is
just
a real
his father
problem.
Dying, and it's because it's more masculine.
Yeah, and I guess that's a thing. If they're going to have James Cagney cry over somebody, it's got to be a dude and not his mom, because that might show, like, weakness?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. It's weird.
Now that we think about it, it kind of does fit the bill for being like one of these like really masculine like recruitment propaganda films.
Yeah, I mean, even when he goes to the World War I recruiting office and he's like, well, I'm 39. They're like, oh, 31's the cutoff. And he's like, oh, I'll do my part. And he does the song and he does the dance number. And they're like, oh, you're going to do way more good over here than over there. And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that is the most like hammy thing I've ever seen, and it's perfect for this movie. And it's also like the most like let's go get them, boys, like, everybody can do their part kind of thing.
I mean, the movie really is about everybody can do their part, right?
Yeah,
because it's literally like what the guy's whole career was him doing his part while not actually fighting.
Yeah,
he gets a Congressional Medal of Honor for sitting at home writing songs.
Yeah, which
acting them too, but
yeah,
producing
and directing
and
stuff.
Yeah, you get the point.
You get the whole thing. Do you think that's because in the movie they said he was the first person of his profession to get a Congressional Medal of Honor, and do you think that's like a good thing? Do you think the Medal of Honor should be held for like people of like that military class who was like, you served your country, you like saved lives in combat or in world or whatever? His was, I contributed to the American culture zeitgeist and I provided these patriotic songs for our country to rally behind. Do you think that deserved a congressional medal, or do you think it was more like when he got it is like, this is something for your legacy kind of thing? Like FDR appreciated him and that's why he got it.
We're gonna get a little philosophical here.
Okay.
But I think the boost in morale that he gave to the United States as a whole through his songs and his like creations and his patriotic plays and whatnot was probably a giant contributor to the war effort.
Real
Huge. You have no idea how big of a factor at-home morale plays into wars. There are people that believe that we lost Vietnam because it was seen as such a bad war at home.
Yeah, I've heard that tale before where people said if Vietnam was never televised in America like it was, if it never became the first media war, we probably would have won the war based just on brute force alone. Which is messed up, but we're going to get to Vietnam soon.
That's,
neither here nor
that's
there.
a different subject. We won't go too deep into that, but I do believe that, I'm not sure if he earned it over other people. No clue.
We're not alive in 1942 to make that call.
Well, I just don't. I haven't done the research,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know if there was other people who were more qualified who didn't get it. But, over there, and,
Grand Old Flag, Yankee Doodle Dandy.
This whole, like, setup he has for all these I mean, there was even the line in the movie where he was getting criticized for making all these flag-waving movies. They were like, oh, he can't do anything else. But it was really more of his purpose. He did a service to the country through helping with the morale and helping, maybe even with the recruitment, depending on how you feel about, recruitment and whatnot.
Yeah.
But, if recruitment's a good thing, well, he did a damn good job, probably.
Probably. I would be so curious how many people in World War I or II or whatever heard some of the songs, saw the plays, just felt that big pro-America zeitgeist and just was like, I need to serve my country.
There's probably so many people that were like on the fence about it, and they saw like a
Cohen production,
and then they were like, that's it, I have to do something for my country.
If this guy's gonna wave his flag on Broadway, I might as well go over there and wave my flag. Fighting the Axis.
It just gives you that spirit, of home and country.
And that makes me want to like this movie more, because I feel the reason it's on the AFI 100 is because it played such a big part in the American zeitgeist rather than its actual filmic quality.
Yes, which I believe is why it's on the AFI, which, segue into that, of it being on the AFI. I do believe it's more zeitgeist than actual quality, although the movie could probably still be on the list. I'm not sure, we haven't watched all the movies on the list, but I'm pretty sure it can be on the list just based on Cagney's performance alone.
I was gonna say that when we were talking about why you should watch this, and it was like the history buffs. If you're an actor and you want to actually see what it looks like for an actor to carry a film, because people say that a lot, where it's like, oh, this guy carried a movie. This guy he was the only good actor in it. No. You watch Yankee Doodle Dandy, you will see an S-tier actor delivering an S-tier performance and carrying like B-grade like actors through.
Yes, definitely, 100%. Definitely carried it all on his shoulders for the movie. I mean, he's the main character, but he was the main character.
He was the man.
Barely side characters. I mean, like, there's his family, but like there are not, like, after like the first like third of the movie, they're kind of like a non-factor.
Basically, after the first act, they just disappear until almost the end of the movie.
Yeah, where they kind of like reunite. They don't reunite for that long.
They reunite and then they like die off like flies.
Like Like flies.
Yeah. But, okay, because this movie was number 100 on the 98 list, and it actually moved up to 98 on the 2007 list. Small climb, but it's an increase. It's a climb. So, but do you think if they ever redo this, is it coming off completely? Is it going back down? Is it actually going to move up?
I mean, if they put less weight onto, like, the American, like, Zeitgeist portion of their, like, rating movies on here, it might fall off entirely.
Well, because I remember, I don't think I've ever told you the criteria for what gets on this.
No, I didn't even know there was criteria. I thought it was just kind of like, shady, like they vote for it in a back room type of thing.
I mean, they still vote for it in a back room kind of thing, but there is criteria to get on the list.
Okay.
Now, I'm gonna bring it up real quick so I can quote it to you verbatim. Okay, here it is. So, number 1, has to be feature-length narrative, so no documentaries, and it has to be over 60 minutes. Has to be an American film, English language, so it has to be filmed in the United States, has to have American production, it has to have basically an American money behind it. That's why things like Bridge Over the River Kwai, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Lawrence of Arabia, which were British-made films, but they had American backing by like MGM, Warner Brothers, they're American money in it. It has to have critical recognition, which means it had to have been liked by critics, won Oscars, won something, which ties into the major award stuff. Has to have popularity over time. People got to stay involved in this. Things that last longer are good. You keep quoting this movie, it's better for you. Historical significance and cultural impact is probably why Yankee Doodle Dandy's on the list.
Yeah, it definitely hits the 6 and the 7 pretty hard. And the rest of it kind of...
Well, I think the major award, because it won 3 Oscars, including Best Actor, and the other ones where it's like feature length, has to be in English, those are like, I mean, it showed up to the ball. But the rest of them, I think it's
popularity over time.
That's the one
off the deep end.
That's the one that's probably gonna
giving this thing probably a 0.
Yeah, because a lot of the other movies, I won't say every other, but a lot of the other ones, I could probably ask 10 people, and I'll get at least 7 people who say they've seen it or heard of it. This one, I'd probably get like 1 or 0.
Probably 0.
You're going with 10 random people off the streets?
With the bottom 10 movies on this list, people have probably heard out of like 8 or 9 of them. And this is going to be the one that nobody's heard of.
Yeah. And I mean, Ben-Hur was 3-hour-long Bible epic, and we brought that up at our weekly game night, and our friends heard of that movie. Yeah. I think our buddy Matt saw it.
Yeah, he's seen it before.
Which,
it's kind of surprising.
Yeah, a little weird. And then like Toy Story is...
Yeah, I mean,
after
Toy
a certain...
so huge.
If you were of a certain age, not only do you know of Toy Story, you can sing I Got a Friend in Me by heart. Yeah. If you're of a certain age, you can do that.
Huge in the cultural zeitgeist 20 years later.
Oh, yeah. And Yankee Doodle Dandy, granted, it's 80 years after the fact. And I don't know if this will ever get a, like, revival. Like the hipsters are going to be like, yo, Yankee Doodle Dandy, masterpiece. I don't think that's going to happen.
Not really there, because it's not, like, a big 3-dimensional movie. It's got a big 3-dimensional actor in it, but it's not a big 3-dimensional movie.
And it's almost the thing where I wish, if it was a thing where, they needed a James Cagney film on this, I would rather see, like, Scarface on here.
Oh, I can't.
Or not Scarface, Public Enemy.
Oh.
Sorry, Public Enemy.
I can't attest to that. I haven't seen it.
I mean, you'd probably like it. I think he's better in it. But we'll see. It's not on the list, but, But if we needed another, like... early musical, Gold Diggers in 1933 is probably a better one because it does actually have more of a plot going on.
But I mean, this one hits that historical significance and cultural impact pretty hard.
I think, yeah, and that's probably why the rest of them wouldn't make it on the list because they don't hit those two nearly as hard as this one did at the time. But I will say, I hope it kind of holds on, but I would not be surprised in the slightest if it fell off in the next list.
If they add like 3 or 4 new movies onto the list, I don't see how this thing could hold on.
This one's gonna be one of the first on the chopping block.
Yeah. It's kind of unfortunate. It's a nice movie. I'm kind of glad that there are movies like this on the list that are like just nice.
It's not like Deer Hunter or Platoon where they're really heavy movies. This is just a nice musical.
It's like, we got Toy Story and this on here, and we're just, it's nice.
We're having a good one.
Yeah, we're having a good time,
But next week, we're going to have a much different time. Because we're going to be talking about the existential crisis of being with Blade Runner.
Oh, so good. I can't wait.
You've never seen it, right?
I've never seen it, but I loved Blade Runner 2049.
Are you going to see the new Dune film? Because it's done by the same director who did 2049.
I don't know. I've heard mixed things already about Dune. And so we'll see. We'll see. Maybe, if you convince me to go see it, we'll go see it.
All right. But Blade Runner, next week. I need to find out what cut we're going to watch. Because I have all the cuts.
I know.
Do we watch the theatrical, the directors, the
whichever
final?
one's on the list? They have a specific version for the list, right?
No. They just have Blade Runner. I assume it's the theatrical cut. I assume, but I don't know if it actually is. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it because I'm pretty sure I'm going to love it.
Are you pretty sure?
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I loved the sequel that people said wasn't as good.
Which,
I'm like, if this isn't as good as the original, and I really love this.
Randy's like, okay, it might Ben-Hur, Blade Runner. There might be some debate going on here about Randy's new favorite.
We'll see. Maybe it'll actually be that good.
One can only hope because I'm excited. I haven't seen the original Blade Runner in a cool minute.
I also love that genre.
Oh, that cyberpunk neo-noir.
Yeah, it's so good. I love it.
Oh, you're really gonna dig it. I'm really excited to show you that one. But for everybody out there, if you wanted to listen to that one, come by next week on the YouTube channel In the Frame to listen to the Film Odyssey podcast or our Spotify, Apple podcast, or anywhere else you can get your podcast. And that's at the same place, the Film Odyssey podcast. Randy, anything you want to say to send us out?
My father thanks you, my mother thanks you, my sister thanks you, and I thank you. Good night.